A study showed that employees spend 2.8 hours per week dealing with conflict. Economists believe that conflicts lead to loss of productivity that businesses do not want to afford. Therefore, the success of a business could be largely depend on effectively communication within the organization. Also, managing communication and promoting healthy conflict resolution should be a goal of management. Since we will soon be in a working environment, skills of communication and conflict resolution are crucial for our works. Knowing the theories behind the communication and conflict resolution help us to manage relationships among colleagues. Also, it reduces our time spent on resolving conflicts and thus increasing our productivity. Finally, it also enhances the effectiveness of communication and therefore reducing the cost of information process.
In this presentation, we will be covering two theories of conflict resolution and communication: Thomas and Kuhlmann's conflict modes and Leon Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory. Thomas and Kuhlmann's conflict modes is a model based on the Mouton-Blake managerial grid that focuses on conflict resolution styles and individual exhibits based on two dimensions: assertiveness or concern for self, and cooperativeness, concern for others. The intersection of these two dimensions leads to an individual's preferred conflict resolution style, either competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding, or accommodating. Although an individual typically has a preferred style, they are capable of using all conflict styles, and each style is useful in different situations. It is important to develop the ability to choose the right style for different contexts. The following diagram depicts Thomas and Kuhlmann's 5 conflict resolution styles. Competing is a win-lose style of low cooperation and high assertiveness, in which each party asserts their position. Collaborating is a win-win style of high cooperation and high assertiveness. It aims to find a solution that will satisfy both conflicting parties. Compromising is a win-lose style of medium assertiveness and medium cooperation that aims to find a middle ground. Avoiding is a win-lose style of low assertiveness and low cooperation. Finally, accommodating is a win-lose style of high cooperation and low aggression. It involves one party withdrawing to accommodate to the other party's position. Cognitive dissonance is discomfort experienced when an individual holds two or more contradictory cognitions, which are beliefs, ideas, or values. Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance focused on two hypotheses. Number 1. People who experience psychological discomfort from cognitive dissonance will try to reduce this discomfort and achieve consonance or internal consistency. There are 3 methods of reducing cognitive dissonance: outweigh the dissonant thought with consonant thoughts, minimize the importance of the dissonant thought, or incorporate the dissonant thought into one's beliefs. Number 2. People who experience cognitive dissonance will try to avoid it in the future by avoiding challenging situations and limiting information to that affirming their current beliefs. Cognitive dissonance can be constructive in conflict resolution, as it can cause behavior or attitudes to change. However, this may not always be the case. The following table outlines the advantages and disadvantages for each theory discussed.
This study shows conflict resolution of nurses in different positions in Spain. The article focuses on gender and age, as well as social position of nurses in different environments. Here, full professors, assistant professors, and scholarship professors are examined in the academic environment. Nursing supervisors, registered nurse, and nursing assistants are examined in the clinical environment. The most frequent method used by nurses were compromising and competing, and least commonly used was collaborating, although in practice, collaborating method was the most efficient method in nursing management and leadership by M. Marina Tomei, 2009. The two different environments show different results as to resolving conflict. For instance, in an academic environment, accommodating method was mostly used by the professors to be cooperative and be in diplomatic relationship with others. However, the scholarship or assistant professors prefer the competitive along with avoiding, in which highlighted the nature of the competitive environment of the workplace. Similarly, in clinical environment, nurses use accommodating, avoiding, and competing more often, in which highlights the concern for their goal and duty over their own benefits. On the other hand, nurses that are in higher positions, such as supervisors, prefer competing styles for its powerfulness to have control of others in every situation. Moreover, younger nurses have preferred accommodating and avoiding styles, as they were short of such experiences compared to other experienced and older nurses, thereby trying to avoid conflict in the first place. In accordance to the study by Maxwell in 1992, men and women were found to seek on different interests in conflict resolution. For instance, men tend to focus on the interests of themselves, preferring competing methods, whereas women tend to focus on the interests of others and be cooperative when dealing with conflict. However, the results of this study shows that male nurses preferred competing and accommodating, whereas female nurses have preferred avoiding, in which concluded that their employment level affects on their conflict resolution method more than their gender. The evidence shows that Thomas Kuhlman conflict resolution method allows individuals to find the most ideal conflict resolving method in accordance to what social position, gender, and age they are, despite their individuality. Most often it comes to match the hypothesis of the past studies and provides a guidance to individuals in different situations.
A 2013 study suggested 4 ways that conflict within a classroom could be handled. Let's not make a scene, avoidance and minimization, taking control, defuse, distract, and divert, reactive, turning overt conflict into a learning opportunity, and proactive, surfacing underlying or covert conflicts for learning. The reactive and proactive methods proved to be the most effective in resolving the issue, although the most time-consuming. In the reactive method, when a conflict occurred, students were encouraged to resolve their dispute. With the proactive method, faculty members purposely planned activities which would raise conflict in a more controlled environment, and then engaged with their students in a transformative dialogue aimed at helping them learn. Both methods involve concepts of cognitive dissonance. Individuals are faced with a difference between their views and expected views. The difference causes imbalance, and so they may seek consistency. Thus, if they are encouraged in the right way, a positive end result, in this case acceptance of each other, can be achieved. It is important that there is room for the new attitudes. Organizations must also be able to accept the change in behavior.
For the case study, we've chosen a scenario that highlights the issue of conflict in the workplace with particular reference to the cognitive dissonance theory. Recommendations on solving the conflict centers around effective communication. First off, let's provide a bit of background. This is George, a newly appointed CEO of Retronics. The board is replacing him with the founder of the company, giving him the task of growing revenue with an eye towards taking the company public in a few years' time. He's at distress at the moment because their business is not doing as well as they hoped, and he's also having some issues with his employee. This is Shelley, a newly appointed marketing director of Retronics. She was recommended by the chairman of the board for her creativity and ability to bring results to the table. She's becoming increasingly disengaged at work, feeling tied down by George's management style and being unable to express her creativity. Both of them have a different approach to work, and because of the lack of effective communication between them, conflict arose, resulting in stagnation of the work progress. Firstly, George and Shelley are avoiding confrontation. George is disappointed with Shelley. He provides her with feedback but doesn't address the real issue of Shelley's increasing disengagement and poor performance. Shelley avoids confronting with George, instead complains to her friends and considers calling in sick. Second, Outwardly, Shirley appears to be accommodating towards George's request and managing style. She doesn't give her own opinion, making the changes to her work despite her preferences. However, neither party is satisfied as George is still not happy with her work and Shirley ends up being stressed. Third, during the confrontation, each party articulated their views in a rather aggressive way. Shirley says she feels she's being micromanaged. Although George apologized that his actions came across as micromanaging, he undercuts this by criticizing Shirley's lack of ability to do her work properly. This confrontation failed to resolve the issue as Shirley feels too emotional and walks out the room, and George is also left feeling frustrated. The conflict is a small issue that has resulted from not communicating effectively. It could easily be resolved by them expressing what they are feeling. So our recommendation is to adopt a collaborative conflict resolution style, meaning they should collaborate to come up with a solution that they are happy with. Finding a time to openly express their opinions with each other and listening without interrupting is the key to resolving their differences. Currently, Shirley is not able to communicate her rationale to George without being criticized straight away. If George gave Shirley the time to explain and listen to her, they may be able to find a common ground together. This case study is a perfect example of cognitive dissonance as it provides both conflicting individuals' perspective. For Shirley, she's unable to accept criticism that George gives her. She has a cognition that her work is perfect, but once George gives her feedback that conflicts with this cognition, it creates a cognitive dissonance which causes frustration. Her way of dealing with the cognition is to ignore George's feedback by bad-mouthing George. What would he know? He's an engineer. There's also an underlying cognitive dissonance between what she believes a good manager is and George's micromanagement style. She has a need to express her own creativity and not be so controlled. So with her new manager, George's style, she doesn't have freedom. She doesn't feel trusted, saying, "I've never had to deal with someone breathing down my neck like this." It makes her feel frustrated and angry, and because she is a strong, self-sufficient individual, she reduces the cognition dissonance by rejecting the new cognition, avoiding George. For George, he believes he's doing all the right things, but when she says she feels that he's micromanaging her, this cognition conflicts with how he believes he is behaving. So he too rejects the cognition by thinking, interestingly, how he never really had capable people complaining about being micromanaged, blaming this view on Shirley's lack of ability. The recommendation for them is that both Shirley and George needs to be more accepting of each other's views. So instead of reducing the cognitive dissonance by rejecting the conflicting cognition, they should accept the conflicting cognition and change their behavior accordingly. Shirley needs to know how to accept criticism and properly incorporate this into her work, as once she shows she can execute something successfully, George will have more trust in her and will provide her with more freedom and opportunities. And George needs to trust his employees. He needs to look at his management behavior from the view of his employees and then change this to give his employees more freedom. Now, this requires effective communication between George and his employees on what they are looking for to get out of their jobs, their expectations, and any future recommendations for improvement.
In this presentation, we looked at the important organisational issue of communication and conflict resolution. In particular, we analysed two theories, Thomas and Kilman's conflict modes and Leon Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory. We looked at empirical evidence supporting these two theories, and finally saw how they could be applied to a workplace case study. This deeper understanding of communication and conflict resolution in regards to the two theories has enabled our group members to develop skills and knowledge that can be used in the future to build and sustain relationships in the workplace.